Hey guys, welcome to today's video. As you can see, we are starting out this morning on the road and we are making a nursery supply run. So always enjoy these days when we get to go buy a bunch of stuff, get to spend a bunch of business money, right? So I want to just share with you a little bit today about kind of what we're going to get today, why we're going to get it, and then talk a little bit about some of the kind of hidden expenses involved in a nursery and how much they cost, and you know, some of this stuff we have to buy every year and some we don't. And Chloe's driving us today, so wave, Chloe.
Hi.
So I'll take a few minutes while we're driving to kind of peruse a few things in our catalog and kind of make a list of some things that we're going to get, and a couple of out of the ordinary things, at least for us. So anyway, we're just going to make a day out of this today because it's about a 3 to 3.5 hour drive one way, and we'll just share a little bit with you as we go, and when we get back we'll show you what we got and what we're going to do with it. So let's get on the road and let's go for a ride today. All right, guys, we are back home and battling a bright setting evening sun, but that's all right. And I want to show you a little bit of what is here in our trailer that we hauled home today and just get a little bit of a closer look. Now up here in the front of the trailer, these are 12-inch mom pots. So we're going to take a shot at growing mums this fall. So I wanted to go ahead and get those to make sure I have them when I need them later on. And we got about 800 of those. They're right here in the front, and then there's some over there and underneath there. On top here are trade gallon 2s. So they're trade 2s. They're about 1.5 total gallons in size. So that's become a real bread and butter pot size to us, is that trade 2 size. So 1,500 of those. Right there, that black looks like a tube, but that is a 300-foot long, 15-foot wide piece of ground cover that we're going to use to build our mom field with. And we got a couple bags of BM6 burger mix, which we're just going to use that to make plugs and such with. Just several kind of miscellaneous projects that I've really taken a liking to using this peat and perlite mix for doing a few things propagation wise. So you're looking at about $1,100, a little bit over $1,100 worth of stuff here in the trailer. It's about 2,500 pots, give or take, plus these 2 bags, these 2 bales, whatever you want to call them, and then long sheet of ground cover there. So about $1,100 for this little haul today. Well, all right, guys, it is the next morning, and I'm unloading my trailer today. Another cold day here, and what's stacked up here on top first is these trade 2 pots. Now, I've mentioned my trade 2 pots from time to time for this or that, but this has really become a pot that we use a lot more in our nursery. And the reason for that is because you can do a lot of different things with it. So for example, I propagate a hydrangea one year, grow it out the next year in a trade 1. And you can sell it in a trade 1 probably that year. But if you don't, which I like to not do that, I like to keep them, then I pot them up into these trade 2s, and we sell these for about $11 a piece. So we also do that with green giants, and we do it with different shrubs like hollies and loropetalums and other shrubs that we have. And we also use it as kind of an intermediate size, growing out some of our emerald green type screening trees on their way to going into 3s or 5s. So we use them for a lot of things. Now, these particular pots, I paid about 30 cents a piece for them. That's one of the things people always want to know is, you know, how much do pots cost? And that's, of course, obviously a good question. I mean, you know, when you're doing a nursery or any business, you have to keep costs in check, and you have to know what things cost. And, you know, you can't ever afford to be careless when you're dealing with the price of things. You know, you might not always find everything for exactly the price you wish it was. I mean, nothing is as cheap as we want it to be. But that being said, I get these for about 30 cents each, and I'm not telling you that's the best price in the world. It's not a bad price, but that's about what they cost. So obviously, you know, when you're talking about a plant that you're going to sell for $11, sometimes we sell these for $15. Just depends on the plant and how they look. But let's just say that we're selling it for $11 each. Out of that $11, you got to take 30 cents out for the pot. So it's just something to be aware of. And, you know, I hope as time goes on, we sell more and more and more plants this size. We get a whole lot of them to offer to our customers this year. And I bought 1,500 of these pots yesterday, first to use this year and next year. Now, currently, I have, I don't know, 10,000 trade one pots, which is, you know, our number one pot, obviously. Our most common pot that we use. If you've watched our channel, you know it all. Y'all are familiar with that little factoid. But I grabbed a little stack, so I didn't buy any, hadn't bought any in, you know, over a year. But I grabbed a little small stack of them just to contrast the size with the trade two. You know, I don't mean the height of the stacks. I just mean kind of the, you know, just to visually show you the difference. So trade one, trade two. So this is about 1.5 true gallons. This is about 0.66 or 7 true gallons. So just to kind of show you a difference in the size there. Now, the trade gallon pots, the trade one pots, you know, you can get them for 13 cents a piece, 15 cents a piece. They may be 25 cents a piece. You get them online, they may be 30 or 40 cents a piece. Obviously, you know, you want to do whatever you can to find them as cheap as you can. You might find them cheap or free on Facebook Marketplace or on Craigslist or somewhere like that. People are always selling them, getting rid of them, that kind of thing. I've gotten a lot of free pots, lots, thousands and thousands of free pots. So it's kind of a thought exercise in expenses. So in your pots, just think, you know, trade gallons, I'm just going to just give you a number that you might find them for. Let's just say 25 cents, and you may find them for 5 cents. But let's just say 25 cents, and let's say for these trade twos, something like 30, 40, 50 cents, just to give you an idea of what you might expect to pay for these in relation to the cost of what it actually takes to produce and sell a plant. So all these little things add up, and you know, your pots are not a huge expense, but they are an expense. So just something to kind of be aware of. Now, another obvious expense in the nursery is potting soil. We didn't really buy any potting soil yesterday. I'll show you what we did buy in just a minute, but potting soil, you know, and it's always kind of a tricky part of the equation, or it can be, figuring out your potting soil situation. Now, right over here is my potting soil situation, if you want to call it that. And, you know, the largest part of the pile there is pine bark. It's just ground up pine bark, and I've had that pile for 2 years now, and it started out at 70 yards, and there's probably 10 yards left there of that. And I mix it with this hardwood bark. Now, I realize that ground hardwood bark is not readily available for most people. It's just what I have in my area, and that's what you have to do. You have to find what's readily available in your area, because there's 1,000 ways to make good potting soil. You can buy products that are bagged, that are peat and perlite based. I would strongly encourage you, if you're just doing nursery plants like perennial shrubs, evergreen trees, anything like I do, basically anything that's not an annual, to find something that's bark based, whatever the bark is that may be available to you, because it's going to be cheaper and it works really, really well. It drains well and it holds moisture well. Your two key things. So anyway, my potting soil is cheaper than most because I buy it in bulk. So I've got probably around $12 per yard in my potting soil. Most of the time you're not going to be able to find it for that, and that's okay. If you find ready to use potting soil and mix, it might be $50 a yard. Well, here's the thing. If it's $50 a yard, again, this is just a thought exercise. You do your own math, you do your own pot size in your own circumstances. So it's just a thought exercise is all I'm sharing with you. But if your potting soil is $50 a yard, you can get about 250 trade gallon pots out of 1 yard of potting soil. So, you know, that's around 20 cents per pot in potting soil at $50 a yard. You know, if you're doing it at half of that, $25 a yard, more like 10 cents per trade gallon pot. So, you know, just adjust the math again for your pot size and your situation and all of that. But it's just something to think about. But anyway, if I'm selling an $8 plant in a trade one pot, I've got approximately a 15-cent pot. I've got, let's just say 10 cents worth of potting soil in it, and then just a couple of pennies per pot or less in fertilizer in that pot. And that's all I do besides water them. So, you know, and then the plant itself. And if you propagated that, you've got nothing in it but time. If you bought them in, you've got the purchase price of the plant. So, you know, it's not hard to figure out the math on how plants work and all of that, but just strictly in your plant, your pot, your dirt, your fertilizer, your plant. You know, most of the time for a trade gallon plant, you're going to have less than $1 in it. And if you bought the plant in a plug or a rooted cutting or something, you may have $2 to $3 per pot. So it just kind of depends on how you get the actual plant. So maybe that's helpful. Now these are, let's see, we can get this out from under here. These are mom pots. And I can't tell you much about moms because I don't know about moms. but I'm in the process of learning, and we're going to try growing several hundred of them this year. Now, these are 12-inch mom pots, and you know, I don't know why it is this way, but that works out to about 3 gallons in size, but moms aren't talked about in gallons. You know, you got an 8-inch mom, a 10-inch mom, a 12-inch mom, that kind of thing. So we're going to do a mom layout this year and hopefully learn how to successfully grow moms and be able to sell them this fall. And I'm not going to say a lot about this because I don't know a lot about this, but I'm learning as I go. But these are going to be the pots for that, and these were about 50 or 55 cents each. So, you know, whatever we can grow our moms for and whatever it costs to produce them, one of the costs of production will be the 50 cent, we'll just say 60 cent pot that these will be grown in. So we're looking forward to growing some big, bodacious, gigantic, obnoxiously big moms. That's what we want to do. So that's what these pots are for. Now this is a 15-foot wide roll of ground cover, 300 feet long. So you do the math. I mean, it's going to cover about 4,500 square feet minus some overlap. And you can see it's, you know, 7.5, 8 feet tall, folded in half and then rolled up. So I'm probably about to embarrass myself on camera. I'm going to try to pick this up. I think it weighs 120 pounds or something. It's a pretty good load. Kind of a young man's game here, that's for sure. But if you're doing any kind of layout with nursery plants, you got to have some kind of ground cover to put all your stuff on, or you're going to be completely overran by weeds, and it will happen quickly, and it will absolutely wreck your nursery. And I don't mean to overstate that. I'm not overstating that, but you just have to have something to sit your plants on the ground. So a little later in the spring, when we build out our mom area, we're going to put this out, and it should be enough square footage for all the moms that we want to try to grow this year. So this roll costs $180, and it'll last for several years. So this is not something you have to buy every year. But when you're setting up your initial nursery of whatever it is, however big you're doing it, you're going to have something like this. So, and the wider you can get, the better. I mean, some people are just going to need little small pieces, you know, 3 feet, 6 feet, whatever. But if you're doing a large area, it really pays to get the widest you can get. You know, you can get it in 12 feet rolls. This is the biggest you can get that I know of, is 15 foot. So anyway, we'll get this put in the back and with all the pots and stuff, and I'll show you one more thing that I got. All right, and the last thing that I have here that I want to show you is this kind of an all-purpose potting mix. It's Burger BM6, and Burger makes all kind of formulas for potting various things, from propagation to seed starting to like annual flower production to just general nursery use. And this is just a general use. But what I'm going to use this for is for propagation, for making plugs. So most of my plants that I root, or at least a lot of them, I just do in sand, or, you know, sand and bark combined, and that's completely fine to do your propagation that way. If you want to do plugs, you need something that's got peat in it to make that root ball solid and not crumbly. So, you know, I ship plugs from time to time when I have them available, sell them online. And when you do that, you need to have a nice solid plug that's not falling apart and crumbly, you know, as your customer's receiving them in the mail and opening them. You want them to hold together, nice, tight, solid plug. So a mixture like BM6, it's peat and perlite. So again, water retention and drainage. That's always the name of the game in the nursery business and plant propagation or plant production, is moisture retention and drainage. So this does that really well. If you have just leftovers of this, you just mix it in with your potting soil mix. Just throw it in the pine bark pile. It's totally fine. And these cost about $30 a bale, but they go a really long way. These are compressed bales. There's a lot of product inside each one of these bales. Like I said, they weigh about 60 pounds. They're heavy. And when you're just filling up plug trays with them, thousands of plugs especially if you're doing 72s or 60s, something small, thousands of them from one bag. So it goes a long way. This is something that I've been using, you know, a little bit more in the last year or so and experimenting with it, and I really like the product that it produces. Well, all right, guys, that's our nursery supply haul. Listen, I just wanted to show y'all this, not to show y'all how cheap we get this stuff or how expensive this stuff is for us, and that's not the point of this at all. It's just to give you more of an idea of some ongoing expenses that you might or might not be aware of in the nursery, and kind of some real life numbers on how that looks for us. So, you know, there are things that you have to buy and use every year on an ongoing, even monthly basis. And then there are things that you only buy, you know, once every few years. And we had a little bit of both in this haul today. But anyway, I hope this is helpful to y'all. And I got to go put this potting mix up. And we like to keep this where it's dry. So, you know, water will find its way into these plastic bags, and we don't want that. So we're going to go put these up and get moving on some other chores today. So guys, I love y'all, appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.